more than ever before. We need solidarity, hope, and the political will to see this crisis through together. Thank you.
Secretary General, we're now going to take questions from the press. This is a virtual press conference, the first of its kind for you in our age. Our first question is from Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. She asks, Mr. Secretary General, you're calling especially on the G20 countries to take the lead, but many of them are struggling to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic in their own countries. Where is the money going to come from to fulfill the ambitious program you just outlined?
Well, we see that whenever there is a problem in the banking system, trillions appear to solve the problems of the banks. And these trillions must appear now. Governments, central banks must work to guarantee that there is liquidity in the economy, but also that funds are mobilized to those that are most in need. And those that are most in need are people, on one hand, and the poorest countries on the other. And it is absolutely essential to show solidarity in the way we respond to the crisis. A wealthy country must not be convinced that it has only to deal with its own citizens. It's in the interest of a wealthy country to contribute to a global response, because the crisis can come from wherever, at any moment, and it is in the interest of everybody to fight it effectively, especially in the most vulnerable areas of the world.
The next question is from many journalists collectively. Are you concerned that the restrictions on travel will boost nationalist sentiments? You say that international cooperation is the answer. How do you achieve that?
I think that the restrictions on travel can be understood because of the need to contain the spread of the disease. But it's very important that at the same time people feel the need of solidarity. It's very important to fight fake news, to fight those campaigns in social media that try to spread fear, that try to spread antagonism, that try to create divisions. This is a moment of solidarity, and this is a moment where political leaders, religious leaders, community leaders must convey a very strong message asking for people to feel that we need to do this together. And even if we are physically separated, I am physically separated from my family at the present moment, but we are together fighting this crisis. And I think that the same must happen with countries, the same might happen with peoples. We can be physically separated, but we need to do it together.
The next question is from Valeria Robecco from the Italian news agency ANSA. Africa is now experiencing a limited number of cases, but some experts fear that there will be a wave of cases in the near future. Are you working on some plans to help the most vulnerable areas?
Yes, our teams in Africa are working very hard with the governments to support them. But my very strong appeal to the G20 is to have a particular concern with African countries and other countries in the developing world. We must absolutely be strong in supporting them, because the virus is coming to them, and their health systems are extremely weak. So they need a very strong support from the developed world. And if that support is denied, we could have catastrophic consequences. If the virus is not contained because countries have not the capacity to contain it, it can spread like wildfire, as I mentioned. And we could have, even with low rates of mortality, we could have millions of people dying. And this is absolutely unacceptable.
We're going to take two more questions. This next question is from a number of journalists. As you know, the journalists gathered here are working in this building, and they want to know, is it worth the risk to keep the UN Secretariat building open, and can the UN Security Council and the General Assembly meet virtually?
First of all, we were ahead of the curve in the UN, and the UN headquarters. We took precautions earlier than they were prescribed, even by the authorities here and in different other parts of the world. We have been extremely careful in order to contain the spread of the disease. I'm working in headquarters. Most of our staff is working at home. And I believe that when people absolutely need to come, they can come, because I think we have created the conditions to do it in perfect safety. On the other hand, it is very important to create the conditions for member states to be able to meet. The Security Council will meet next week more than once, and we have provided conditions for virtual meetings to take place at any moment. In some circumstances, physical presence is needed. In others, it is not. But we have all the conditions to allow for virtual meetings to take place with any number of people. I was just today in a virtual meeting with our 140 resident coordinators around the world. I've been in contact every day with 8 to 10 of our offices around the world and of our missions around the world. And I can tell you I'm very proud, because even in these very difficult circumstances, the UN everywhere is open for businesses, and we are working to make sure that we deliver in relation to the member states that need our support and in relation to the people we care for, the most vulnerable everywhere.
Final question from Majid at Ruda Network. Does the SG think there should be any special financial support from developed countries to the developing countries, especially the ones dealing with other crises such as wars?
It is absolutely essential to have solidarity at the present moment. It's absolutely essential that the effort that the developed countries are making to support their own citizens is extended to those countries that have not the capacity to do the same to their citizens, and where poverty is much more widespread and the conditions to fight the disease are much less effective.
That's the end of this press conference. Thank you all for tuning in, and those who tuned in online also, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mi naitwa Ivy Brenda Cherotich na niko 26 years old. So I was the first patient to be confirmed with COVID-19, which is hiyo ndio disease ni iko caused by coronavirus. So I came out to the Ministry of Health, and I let them know that I was concerned because I had shown symptoms of COVID-19. Na hakuna mtu alini pressure like go forward. Ni mimi tu niliamua as a responsible Kenyan nifanye nione as in juni kazi yangu as a responsible Kenyan kukuja mbele na kuambia government, I think this is what is happening and you might have to test me. Na niko happy because waliamua kunitake seriously, wakanitest, and that's when wakapata niko positive. So after wakanipata niko positive, walinipea treatment, walini support sana, and I'm just niko very thankful to all of them for what they did. Kitu nataka kuwashow ni kuwa hii kitu ni manageable na ni treatable. If you think you have it, don't be afraid.
Yeah, so really we just want to assure all Kenyans that we are working very hard as a ministry, as a government, as a health sector, as a country, a whole government approach to addressing the challenge that is currently facing us of coronavirus. And the team that we have been meeting with this evening has been a team of experts, some health workers, experts in communication, experts in social media, all looking at how we work together to make sure that, number one, Kenyans are aware, they are well sensitized about what we are dealing with, that we all also learn what precautionary measures we need to take to ensure that we can prevent ourselves from getting coronavirus, and also to ensure that we protect our families. The team of experts here has been doing a lot of work in terms of their own practice, the clinical practice, the protocols around coronavirus. This is a new virus that the medics have never dealt with, that the entire health workers have not dealt with. Feel that you're very ill to go into a matatu, to go to hospital, we really recommend that you call the 719 line and get us to come and pick you through an ambulance which has got specialized facilities and with health workers to take you to an isolation facility where you can be tested. So basically we are just aligning our coordination and making sure that we have a seamless operation even as we deal with coronavirus. And I just want to thank the entire team, the entire fraternity in communication world, social media world, our experts in health, for their really for their commitment and self-sacrifice. We've been sitting here up to very late hours in the night, days on end, and people are here really just volunteering themselves to serve this nation. So my deep appreciation, and to all of us, please keep us hooked up to our conversations, be kept in the loop through hashtag Komesha Corona. Thank you very much.
I'm joining the World Health Organization's Safe Hands Challenge. Hand washing is one of the most effective ways of preventing the spread of coronavirus. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 40 to 60 seconds.
Mi naitwa Ivy Brenda Cherotich na niko 26 years old. So I was the first patient to be confirmed with COVID-19, which is hiyo ndio disease ni iko caused by coronavirus. So I came out to the Ministry of Health and I let them know that I was concerned because I had shown symptoms of COVID-19. Na hakuna mtu alini pressure like go forward. Ni mimi tu niliamua as a responsible Kenyan nifanye nione as in juni kazi yangu as a responsible Kenyan kukuja mbele na kuambia government, I think this is what is happening and you might have to test me. Na niko happy because waliamua kunitake seriously, wakanitest and that's when wakapata niko positive. So after wakanipata niko positive, walinipea treatment, walini support sana, and I'm just niko very thankful to all of them for what they did. Kitu nataka kwa show ni kuwa hii kitu ni manageable na ni treatable. If you think you have it, don't be afraid.
President Uhuru Kenyatta outlined a raft of new measures to contain the spread of coronavirus in the country. Such measures, among others, include the restriction of movement into and out of designated counties of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kwale, and Kilifi. It is important that we all, as Kenyans, adhere to these measures if we are to score significant gains against this monster and keep our country safe. Each and every one of us, and collectively as a country, we are now called to observe and watch over these measures. Let us not shy away to point out those in our midst who are not observing the measure and thereby putting the nation at risk. In line with the pronouncement by the President of the importance of wearing face masks, let me reiterate that it is critically necessary that every Kenyan wears a face mask whilst in public spaces. Everyone must make the effort to get a mask to protect themselves and others, as we endeavor to provide them some where we can, free of charge, through our county governments and other partners. The measures announced so far call for drastic change in the way we live and the way we behave. It is not convenient, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, but we must not be afraid to embrace that which will save us from the danger lurking around us. We are at war with an enemy that is invisible. To fight this enemy, more than ever before, we must remember to embrace simple and basic measures which have proved to be effective elsewhere and have been cited as best practice. These include washing our hands with soap and running water, as well as keeping social distancing. Let me say this: we will not hesitate to take even bolder measures in the coming days. The virus is already here with us, and we cannot run away from it. It is around us, and we have embarked with it a chasing game. Should we allow this to happen, it will be very, very difficult for us to catch up with it. I want to take this opportunity to once again thank our healthcare workers in public, private, and mission hospitals who have worked tirelessly and sometimes under very difficult circumstances. We would not have been able to make the gains that we have had it not been for their dedication. Being our frontline heroes, I want to assure them that we will do everything possible to provide them with every facility that is necessary to enhance their performance. I also want to thank the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development, and the county government of Mombasa, and indeed their governor, Governor Joho, for the collaborative effort.
Good afternoon, good morning, viewers. Welcome to Punchline Africa television broadcasting from the Republic of Kenya in the political command center of Punchline Africa. Right down miles away in Nairobi is Miriam Ogoto. With me, we are going to take you through this good morning show, whatever you are in Africa, in the diaspora, in West Africa, in Southern Africa, where we have time difference. Good morning. Those in East Africa, in Kampala, in Kigali, in South Sudan, in Ethiopia, we have the same time, and Dar es Salaam and Burundi, the same time. Good morning. Viewers, it is a great pleasure that President Uhuru Kenyatta decided to do what we call partial lockdown where you have curfew at night and you have limited access to certain areas in some counties. 4 counties of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, and Kwale will be under 21 partial lockdown, where you don't go out of those counties, starting with the 3 this evening. This evening, the 3 will have a lockdown partially. You can work during the time, you can run your businesses, but at night you are going to curfew, but you don't leave that district, that area where you have been locked down. Partially meaning isolation of the enemy by knowing areas and those who have come in contact with those in the centers. The main centers in Nairobi, especially airport, where most of these came through, in other isolated centers. That's how Kenya is doing it, and that's why we want to share this with the rest of the world, wherever you are. I now hand over to my colleague, Miriam, across the bridge in the headquarters of Punchline Africa. But before I do that, I just want to say, President Uhuru Kenyatta, in his address to the nation on Monday evening, 6 April, declared Nairobi, Mombasa, Kwale, and Kilifi counties COVID-19 hotspots and banned the movement in and out of them for 21 days. The president said, and I repeat what he said, that Nairobi accounted for 82% of the total infections, while the coastal counties account for 14% of the infections, hence the order. He restated that this is aimed at to contain and limit the spread of the disease to other parts of the country, hence announcing that National Security Council had sanctioned and caused an order of cessation of all movement by road, rail, or air in and out of those counties. Travel restrictions, therefore, have been given to that level, and the president was categorical that motor vehicles, scooters, bicycles, motorbikes were not allowed to move in and out of the counties that he has mentioned. This is to safeguard the population, to isolate the enemy, to find out, to treat those that have for recovery, and that is what it's called. Such designated persons must be notified in writing. He said the vehicles ferrying food products are only allowed to have one driver, and with such a person designated to be in the vehicle. This follows the regulations that we already have on the subject. So over to you in the studio, Miriam.
Indeed, thank you so much, Dr. Matsanga, there for the introduction of our topic right now. We apologize for our viewers for starting a bit late, but we still have some time to discuss this very important topic here. A very good morning to you, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching us from across, the globe, because we know our viewers are spread over all over the world. So thank you so much for finding time. So right now, of course, what Dr. Matanga there did was just an introduction to the state of affairs here in Kenya, a move that shocked a lot of Kenyans on Monday, but indeed which so many of us agree was long overdue because of the number of cases in the country that keep rising up. And so the government saw it very important so that because Nairobi being a very central place in terms of transit of people, of human beings, traffic and other things, and so it was important for Nairobi to be contained and other counties which which have also recorded a couple of numbers of the infections of the COVID-19 in the country. That includes Kilifi, Kwale, and Mombasa, because the government is trying by all means necessary to ensure that the spread of the COVID-19 can be curtailed, and so that we're able to contain the numbers. So by wanting to contain the numbers, some places like Nairobi had to be contained. And I'm one of those people who said, you know what, this is something that perhaps the government should have done even 3 weeks ago, just to put Nairobi in a containment environment, so that there's not so much movement. But of course, that move was announced on Monday, and a lot of Kenyans were caught by surprise. I know a few people who had traveled the same day to go to the village for a funeral, a burial, and they'll be stuck there for 21 days. So it's just a bit of an inconvenience for a few people, but that is just a small price to pay when you look at the huge, lives and amount of lives you might be able to save by just containing the city and containing other places, so that people are not able to move in and out, and cause the risk of taking this virus to other counties that have not yet been affected. So that is why the president and the government of Kenya thought it very wise to contain Nairobi province and this other Nairobi county and these other 3 other counties. So that is the synopsis, the backstory of our topic for today. And it is through containment that Wuhan, the place where this coronavirus first broke in Hubei province in China, by the country, the place being put under lockdown, that is how China has been able to contain the numbers. So this move is very necessary, and this move is very important, and this might help in ensuring that a lot of Kenyans out there remain very safe. So, Dr. A partial lockdown, that is what we're experiencing here in Nairobi, and with a discipline. So a partial lockdown as it is right now, Doctor, now that Nairobi has been contained, and Mombasa and Kilifi and Kwale, that is well and good, and I think it was long overdue, but without a level of discipline. Because I walk around, the CBD, and I look at Kenyans, and a lot of them have acquired the mask. That is not disputed, but you'll find that they have these masks, and they're wearing them on their neck, they're wearing them on their chin, they're putting it on their forehead, and when they want to speak to people, for those who are wearing it covering their mouth, they're removing them from their mouths to speak to people. And I'm thinking, the purpose of that mask that you're having on your face, it is supposed to cover your mouth, especially when you're talking or when somebody's talking close to you. You cover your mouth, you cover your nose. So as much as Kenyans have gone ahead and heed, a lot of them heed, the call by the Ministry of Health and indeed the government to acquire masks and wear them wherever they're in public places. But what I have noted from my own personal experience when I'm walking around is that Kenyans don't care if they're wearing these masks the right way. So it's not now just about them buying, they've bought, but they don't care that these things are worn in the right way. So, Doctor, we lack a lot of discipline when it comes to that. I don't know, what is your opinion in that? I don't know if a doctor is able to hear me. We seem to be having an audio problem there from the political command center from Doctor. So let them work on it and find out what the problem could be. But as I was saying there, it is no longer a matter of buying a mask or not. Kenyans have acquired these masks, but we see that they really don't care that they wear these things properly, so that they're able to serve the purpose of protecting them and protecting themselves. You'll find that a lot of Kenyans, Doctor, if you can hear me, a lot of Kenyans are walking around with these masks put on their neck, put on their chins, put on their forehead. They're not covering the mouth and the nose that they are supposed to be covering while they are having these things on. So I don't know if you can hear me and how you can respond to that in terms of, yes.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I was cut off.
No, we're just having a bit of a problem with the audio, but I think they've fixed it.
Now, is it okay?
It is okay now.
Yes, I can see.
So,
now, thank you very much, Miriam. The biggest point that we have to score here, to underscore, is what does partial lockdown help? It stops the reproduction of the disease, the reproduction of the virus. If you have locked Nairobi, it is very difficult for people to go in Kirinyaga or Muranga or Nyeri and spread the disease there. So this must be explained properly. The Minister of Health is trying to explain, but our people have a problem, and Africa has a problem. Right from Uganda, from all places, our people have the question of impunity. Impunity is what is killing Africa. When they are told to wear masks, they put them down here when they're outside. They don't wash their hands. Some of them think washing hands is also a lazy aspect of life. They don't see it as a value added to your health. Somebody asks you, how old are you? When you tell him I'm 65, he says, how did you grow? Because you grow to that level because of discipline, because of cleanness, because of being firm in all your endeavors. When you are firm, when you are doing things, when you are working hard, you become disciplined. And when you are disciplined, you don't have this type of problems. What is killing us, Miriam, is simple. Impunity. And believe me or not, that impunity can cause a lot of danger that we see around here. So let's get this very clear. The germs move by vehicles. Even those vehicles bringing in foodstuffs must be sprayed, because the people who are taking down the goods are touching those vehicles that have traveled long distance. So there must be precaution. As much as the president was saying, you partially lockdown, but the people bringing in the foodstuffs must be very, very hygienically 100%, so that the people offloading and those putting on, they don't also have a disease, acquire the disease. We have seen nurses at the front line. Some of them, we have seen the British Prime Minister carelessly went without gloves, without mask in hospitals in London. The consequences are very clear. You have seen what has happened to the minister. There is always a problem to the Prime Minister of Britain. There's a problem that when you don't follow the directives, you always fall in a trap. Miriam.
Yes, indeed, it's very important. So it's not just the partial lockdown, but if we have the partial lockdown and we lack the discipline, even just around Nairobi, it is very possible that the numbers would go up. And Doctor, you've cited there a person like Boris Johnson, who right now the Prime Minister of the UK, and we're wishing him a very quick recovery. He's still in intensive care unit, and we saw at the beginning of the pandemic when it broke up in the UK, he took him quite a while, and he was taking it very sluggishly. He didn't take it with the seriousness that it required, and now we see what has happened there in the UK, and that is the other level of attitude we've seen being exhibited with a lot of Africans, a lot of Kenyans. You see them walking around. How do you go ahead and buy a mask, and then after you've acquired this mask, you wear it under your neck, you wear it on your chin, you put it on your forehead, or even if you have it in your mouth? Doctor, this is something that I've really seen, and every time I see it happen, I just freak out. You'll find that somebody will have the mask worn, covering their face and nose, but when they want to speak to somebody, they remove it. And I'm thinking, when you're speaking, that is the time that thing is supposed to be completely on, because that is how you protect yourself and the other person. So they don't understand.
We have not sensitized our people enough. To be very honest, this is very strange for Africa to wear masks. It is very strange. So we need to go on, talk about this on televisions, on our television, on networks, everywhere. The television stations in Kenya, instead of broadcasting Papa Sirandora, this is the time to broadcast something else. Because the Papa Sirandoras, at least they have the artists, they have some money to, to take in at home, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Is he not part of the artist group that President Kenyatta said?
He's already being paid by the television station he works for. He already has a very lovely contract over there. But of course, the money that the president announced.
Instead of the Mexican soap opera, which the mediums like so much.
I don't watch soap opera, please stop. I don't watch them. I don't at all.
Like you don't, because most of the women like the soap opera. They want to know about what happens in Mexico more than knowing what is happening in Kenya. So the situation is, let's have discipline. A disciplined partial lockdown can produce very good results, that the disease will not walk around the whole country, but locked in within specific areas, manageable by the government. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And we saw while making this announcement the other day, President Uhuru Kenyatta said he defined the boundaries of Nairobi metropolitan area as Nairobi County, parts of Kiambu County, which are very due to its close proximity to the CBD, and a lot of Nairobians who work in the CBD live in this area. So the president considered these areas, and over to Chania Bridge, the other side. So what really astounded me yesterday, Doctor, when I was watching the news, Kenyans who had been caught off guard, who had traveled to different parts of the country and were trying to make their way into the city, and they're being told no. This order was given the other day, so you're not supposed to be coming into Nairobi right now. Kenyans heard this announcement being made, but still others braved and went against this directive, and they were trying to access the city from all over the country. And you could see others, I think I saw 6 drivers from the side of Nakuru were arraigned, were taken to the Lari police station, because even after they thought they escaped the main road blockade there by the police, and so they tried to use another route in the interiors, but the police caught up with them. So you can see the attitude that people have, the lack of discipline. If the government has said do not travel, why are you putting your matatu or your PSV and trying to bring people into the city against what the government has ordered? And these are the things that really might force the government now to even declare a complete lockdown if such simple measures cannot be followed. And you want to sit there and still try to access your way into the CBD. You have been told into Nairobi there should not be any more movement, but you still want to do that. And then you see some Kenyans trying to find other routes, and it was a cat and mouse game with the police. At the end of the day, police will get tired, and when they get tired, they're human beings, and then they might try using force, and now that will also become a problem. So why is it so difficult for us to just follow simple directives? I could not understand the images I was seeing yesterday. I'm thinking some people are quite daring there. Doctor, I know you watched the news yesterday.
Let me tell you, the rate of impunity in Africa is very high. Part of what is saving people in Britain is abiding the law, abiding to the laws. There's civil liberties in Britain, but there is civil understanding of those liberties and understanding the law in Britain. That's why, even if the cases are high in Britain, they are not as a result of simple disobedience of the law. They are a result of the stretched systems. And as you know, it is a cold country. The disease tends to attack the elderly, and that it is a rich season. People are just coming out of spring. They're in spring. So, but not because they have disobeyed the law. In Britain, people accept the law. In Africa, we don't accept the law until President Museveni comes in to say, I am coming now to make sure that no car comes to this place. It is happening. It is happening in our African countries. In South Africa, you saw on the first day of the lockdown, people went in Durban and took the petrol station. They took goods. It is the law. It's the impunity, the amount of impunity that will bring us to a catastrophe. The time that the minister was saying is coming, the peak of this is this week and the next week. We are climbing a top hill. For us to come on the other side, we must abide by the guidelines. And the media should make it very clear to start talking about these things without hesitation. All of us on the media, we have played a good role so far. But some of the media are bringing in negativity. When you see negative attitudes being promoted, for example, I was listening this morning to the Secretary General of Nurses in Nairobi area. The National Secretary General of Nurses, Panyako, had said a very good statement. He said, at this moment of time, we don't want to punish Kenyans by asking nurses to get away. We want nurses to work so that the nurses can work, and then we shall later on revisit the issues that are making work difficult at the front line. So this behavior of this having no discipline is the main cause. A discipline like the governor, the deputy governor of Kilifi, indisciplined man, knowing very well he came from COVID area, high risk COVID area, instead of showering and keeping himself in the house, he started walking around, opening his body and the zips everywhere. You have seen the problem. He's being brought to court tomorrow. We don't know how many people have suggested even 10 years as a lesson, because he did it knowingly. People were affected. The coast was not affected. He spread the whole thing along the coast in Mombasa, Kilifi. So these are some of the issues that we need to educate our masses, that the lockdown, partial lockdown, is not a punishment. It is not a punishment that has been put on the people, but a remedy to keep people off reproduction of the disease through contacts coming from one area to the other. That is it. That's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. Over to you, Miriam.
Yes, indeed. And when you look at that lockdown, and also we look at the countries like China, which, of course, these, COVID-19 started from China, and then also just closely South Korea followed. And but immediately we saw some measures these two countries put in place. And perhaps we can borrow the level of discipline and the level of, discipline that it was exhibited in China and also in South Korea that has ensured the numbers went down. With very few infections have been witnessed because these people listen. When the government says stay inside, they listen. So we can look at China and also South Korea as a case study, and we see how they were able to be disciplined, and perhaps something that we can borrow here in Kenya and something that we can borrow indeed across Africa to ensure our numbers now continue to stay low. We read here the statistics, and right now Africa has over 10,000 infections. The numbers are rising slowly but steady, and also the number of deaths have gone up. So this is something that should start worrying us, if at all we've not been worried, not in a bad way, but enough to make us want to listen and heed to a lot of these calls by different governments trying to help us stay safe. Like in Kenya here, people should start getting serious. If you were able to access that mask and you want to walk around with that mask over your neck, I don't know what you're thinking, because you're not protecting yourself at all and you're not protecting the next person. So people need to know this thing is not a joke. I think maybe they don't even watch the international news to realize this thing is taking lives in huge numbers. A country like Italy right now is at 17,000 people have been lost. Yesterday alone, New York recorded the highest death toll in the U.S. 1,800 people died yesterday alone. So this thing is not a joke, and perhaps it has not really entered into the, the minds of a lot of our citizens here in Kenya and in Africa. That's why we are treating this thing as such less seriousness as it deserves. So a country like China, the legal groundwork was established on the January 20th after the government realized that they had a problem. So the first framework to ensure the people were safe was, established on January 20th there in China, when the National Health Commission designated the highest level of treatment and control to fight the new coronavirus, which eventually came to be known as the COVID-19. After that, provinces and municipalities issued their own regulations, and the Chengdu government passed its first measures on January 24th, and starting within hours of the announcement, transport into and out of the city was closed completely, with no exceptions. Even for personal and medical emergencies, schools and universities were already on holiday, but that was extended indefinitely. All shops are shut except those selling food and medicine. Private vehicles were barred from roads without special permission, and most public transport stopped, leaving the streets empty and silent. So they moved in very fast, and the government put these things in place, and the people are there to that. So people are asking, why is it that China has being that this disease broke out from China, and China has been able to keep to maintain the numbers and to keep them low, and slowly they've been trying to flatten the curve. Why is it that there are no new deaths coming from China? Like yesterday, no deaths were recorded from China or new infections. So that is quite a huge, that's quite a huge milestone there, owing to the gravity that this COVID-19 had in this country. And now you go to the CBD, even shops that do not even offer essential services are still very open there, and people are still walking around like, nothing really is happening. And so you see the public transportation was stopped in China immediately. For us here, the government has been trying to be very lenient because there are other factors that we have to consider before some measures are put in place. But even with the ones that have been put in place, that still people are able to move around, and still people can go to work and come back and all that, because the government has been very lenient. You find that even with this doctor, Kenyans just do not want to listen. It's very difficult, and they don't understand.
Miriam, can I make you laugh? As you are speaking now, one MP from the coast called Mohammed Ali Chijopen is saying that what they are talking about the MPs 17 is to stop the parliament from sitting, is to make sure that they steal everything. This is what an MP is saying. Yet it is not the Ministry of the newspaper has printed, it's not the government. The newspaper printed 17 MPs tested positive. But he says they have stopped the parliament, they have stopped this, they have blocked the parliament. Can I read you the tweet of the MP?
Yes, please.
This is what he said. Someone wants to continue bypassing the constitution to siphon funds meant for corona. This is impossible if a parliament is not sitting, so that they can take over roles of parliament and run everything through decree. Plan A, leak fake information of 17 MPs as testing positive. Plan B, have a reason not to allow parliament to resume. Plan C, steal everything and let the poor die. Can you hear that? That is from one member of parliament. And another one called Moses Kuria was also asking the same, why Parliament is not sitting when this virus is going on. So what they are saying is, this is a government working out a scheme to eat the money without accountability. So if you have such indisciplined people in your country, you talk of China. China is a military government. All people, the workers that you see on the railway, that build the railway from Mombasa up to now Naivasha, are officials of the Chinese military Red Army. Either some of them have served or former generals, captains, corporal, sergeant, private in the Red Army. So China is basically a country that is military. So when they say close down, it's closed down. Otherwise, they will come for you. As I told you in the morning, they don't have value for the money.
It's very interesting, Doctor, and more so, this is a member of parliament. This is a leader in this country, and I don't understand. I don't know anywhere in the world right now where they're having parliament session. I've not seen it. I've seen even Nancy Pelosi yesterday. She was being interviewed. She's been in quarantine in her own house in San Francisco, where she represents as a senator there for the last, I don't know how long. And so nobody's holding any parliamentary sessions right now. And even just last week, there's a news item that was done in one of our television stations here, and we're looking at should Parliament return. The way Parliament is and the seating arrangements, it will be a high risk even for members of Parliament to convene because of the way the seats are very close, and we know the number of parliamentarians we have, so it's not possible to space the 1 meter apart there. It is not very possible, so it was a quagmire, and Parliament had to, they were meant to be, convening today, and out of these people who have tested, members of Parliament and senators, of course, that have been tested to have the coronavirus. We cannot mention people's names. For the deputy governor of Kilifi, this is something that he did knowingly, so the government was forced. But even so, to bring his name out, so that the people who had come in close contact with him, and he was outed by some of the officials there in the Kilifi County Assembly who felt that this person was out of the country for a couple of days during this period of time, and they're the ones who actually, one of them forced him to go and get checked, and then he tested positive. So that was important, and that is why his name came out. Otherwise, if it was just done on the down low, and perhaps he did not know and suspected, maybe his name would not have come out. So there's a reason why you covered the names of the people who have who are sick. There is that oath of office even the doctors take. So that is very private information. We saw even our first corona case here in the country. They did not reveal, and after she got well and she was revealed, look at how Kenyans, a section of Kenyans reacted to that. So there's a reason why such information remains confidential and remains private. But I'm sure the government is not mad. The government is not crazy. The Ministry of Health will not stand there and say 17 legislators, both in members of parliament and senators, have contracted this, the COVID-19. This is a very serious disease. So I don't think anybody will stand and say that if there's no proof, if a test have not been done. And these people have been very quiet, a lot of them. We've been wondering, where is such and such a person who have been very vocal? And so this is not the time to bring in unnecessary politics. This is not the time to start pointing fingers in the direction where we shouldn't. This requires concerted efforts. And I keep saying here, and I've said it before and I'm repeating, our leaders must realize that their words really carry a lot of weight. And when you tweet something like this as a leader in this country, there are people who might not even have the figures. There are people who follow you sometimes even blindly. And so they will take whatever you say to be the truth. And because they might not even be in a position to go fact check, and so you will be misleading the public. And I'm sure this is something that CS of Health later on, while giving the daily briefs, I want to hear him address this matter that has been brought up by this member of Parliament for Nyali, I believe, Mohammed Ali, Mohammed Jijupevu there. So this is very serious, and I don't like when politicians try to drag politics where politics does not belong. This is an international calamity. If you haven't, if you haven't already known that, then that is what is happening. And so, should Parliament convene, and the sitting arrangement in Parliament will only go ahead and risk the life of other members of Parliament if others have tested positive, unless all of you go through the test. Then now you can convene. But that has not happened. But the few who have been tested have found to have contracted this illness. I don't know why you even think that this is the place to bring politics. These comments, I think the CS of Health must come out and address. But what I know the CS of Health cannot do is reveal the names of the people who have of the members of Parliament or the senators who have tested positive, because it goes against the oath of office that the doctors take, and this is a very confidential information. Unless somebody wants to come out and say, "Hey, I've tested," but the government she cannot do that. And so, if you want the information, go to the Ministry of Health. Let them tell you. But you shouldn't. This is not a place for politicking. So that is very interesting there, and it's very uncalled for.
Indeed, Miriam, that is the situation, what it is, and that is how things are. And I believe from now onwards, we shall have discipline. I believe discipline is paramount to anything. Wash your hands, keep a distance, don't overload these matatus, don't transfer disease from here to there. We move disease doesn't move. So listen to the government, and that is it. Thank you.
All right, so I think that's where we come to the end.
Yes. Africa, I'm ready.
All right, but we wanted to take a break, then come back with the African news, the Diaspora Dispatches, because this has been good morning.
Top of the hour?
Yes, it's actually 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes past noon, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I do the summary for this?
Yes.
1 minute?
All right. Go ahead.
Am I on now again?
Yes, you're on.
The legacy trend feels that partial lockdown is very, very important. And we support President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in the partial lockdown that took place on Monday. But with partial lockdown, for people to stay home in places where they are, stay home, stay safe, partial lockdown needs discipline. It can only come with discipline. Without discipline, the partial lockdown remains as open, abused by very many actors within the lockdown area. So we appeal to the people of Kenya, the people of Mombasa, the people of Nairobi, the people of Kilifi and Kwale, that the partial lockdown is to stop the reproduction of whatever the virus is, to give the government the time to trace and locate whoever was contacted with those who are in quarantine, then isolate the enemy called COVID-19, bring it to an end. Support the government, support the guidelines, use the guidelines that the Ministry of Health has put forward. Wash your hands, stay at home, keep a distance, all shall be well. Thank you from the legacy trend. So, thank you.
All right, Diaspora Dispatches will be on the other side of the break. So join us on the other link on Diaspora Dispatches. Thank you so much for watching Good Morning Africa.
you.